All right, so my friends, welcome. It's time for our first real big look at Avatar: The Last Airbender, the new Magic the Gathering set coming out in a few weeks. And full disclosure, I don't know anything about Avatar. I know. Sorry, right? But I do know Magic. I do have the cards, so we're going to go over the cards and mechanics. They've been previewing the set and trying to get an idea of what the set's going to be like for limited, for standard, for constructed, and for everything else. So let's jump right in with, I'm going to say it wrong, and I'm going to get absolutely chastised in the comments. Is it Aang, the last Airbender, the literal main character of the show? This is the uncommon version. Like all of these, kind of Universes Beyond sets, there are often multiple versions of each character. This is the uncommon version to try and show the progression. More importantly, though, it shows one of the main mechanics in the set, which is airbending. So they're the four elements, the bending of air, fire, water, and earth. And each one has its own separate mechanic. So the airbending mechanic is to exile something, and then while it is exiled, its owner may cast it for 2, rather than its mana cost. So this allows kind of the typical, I can exile your stuff at a bit of a, kind of tax your things, or blink my own stuff for value, although I will have to pay the cost as well. So there's a 3/2 flyer, I can exile your opponent's stuff, kind of a pseudo unsummon, or blink your own stuff. That also has when you cast a lesson spell, it gets lifelink. More on that in a bit. But yeah, so airbending, kind of like a blink temporary removal sort of mechanic. Kind of cool because it does play both sides of the ball, where it's like sort of, I guess good on your opponent's stuff and good on your stuff. We see Appa, Steadfast Guardian here. This is a airbending mythic. 4 mana for a 3/4 flying flash. When it enters, airbend any number of target non-land permanents you control. So this is a purely defensive version of this, Restoration Angel style. And if you cast a spell from exile, make a 1/1 ally token, which will obviously plays well with the cards you airbend away. And then also, other exile effects, whatever. It's pretty powerful. Card seems really, really good, honestly. And that's kind of nice. Also an ally. More on that later. And then we see Airbender Ascension, 2-mana enchantment, ETB, airbend 1 target creature. Again, this can be your opponent's things to kind of bounce it and tax it for 2, or your own stuff to blink it. And then whenever a creature enters, put a quest counter on this. And then end step, 4 more counters on it. You can blink your stuff every turn, definitely. And that's an actual blink, not an airbending blink. So kind of a cool card here. Again, airbending seems pretty cool. The fact that it's both pseudo removal and pseudo synergy is quite nice. Moving on to blue, I guess not just blue, but the blue, whatever. Water. Waterbending is the mechanic that's kind of different than the rest of them, where it's not really a waterbend to do this thing. Waterbending is simply modifies a cost. So waterbend 3 means that you can spend 3 mana, or you can tap an artifact or creature, kind of like Invoke or Improvise, where you can use a creature or an artifact to pay for one of it. So I could tap 3 Merfolk tokens and waterbend for no mana, or tap 3 mana, or any combination thereof. This is like a limited card, untap a permanent, a little bit of ramp or untaps, and then it can also tap your opponent's stuff, which is kind of cool. Not a very exciting card, but the mechanic's a little weird because it's kind of capped at what it can do. It's more about like what the actual effect is rather than the costing, but kind of cool, kind of clever. Here we see Water Tribe Rallier. It's mana for a 2/2. Waterbends for 5. Look top 4 cards of your library. May reveal a creature card among them, power 3 or less. Put it in your hand, rescue to the bottom. So in a board stall limited game, you could like end step, tap 5 creatures, and then use this ability, which is kind of cool. So yeah, kind of a cool ability. Kind of cool to see like the ability in the cost paying, not the actual ability, but pretty unique. And then we see here Katara, the bending prodigy. This is the multiple versions of this legend. The uncommon version is Waterbender, 6 waterbend mana to draw a card, and end step if she's tapped, put a counter on her, so she's good at waterbending things. It's kind of cool. Another cool limited card. We see a Bant version of Katara as a Panharmonicon for allies. Again, more on allies in a bit. And then the other Katara, the Azorius Katara, is EDB, make an ally, and then Waterbend X to pump your team, kind of mirror entity style. Anyone? Mirror entity. So pretty cool. Moving on to Earthbending, and Earthbending is kind of a simple mechanic we've seen before. Earthbending is Earthbend a number, and it says make a land into a creature, put that many counters on it. It does give it haste. However, when it dies or is exiled, it comes back tapped. So you're not losing a land in its exchange, which is usually the issue have these sort of land animating effects. So the common here, Badger Mole, pretty simple, just 4/4 for 5. It makes a land into a 2/2, and then gives creatures you control with counters on them trample. So it's like a 4/4 to 2/2 for 5, gonna be a limited card. There are other things to care about, counters and so on and so forth. But the fact that you get a land back here is pretty important because any sort of these land animate cards that made you lose a land really kind of were frustrating and bad in multiples. So this is kind of a cool implementation of that. The mythic Earthbend card we see is Badger Mole Cub. It's mana for a 2/2. When it enters Earthbend 1, so you get a turn land to a 1/1. If you tap a creature for mana, add an extra green. Really, really potent effect, right? So clearly this plays well with itself. You can just animate a land and tap it for 2 immediately. But you just have Llanowar Elves or other mana dorks in play. This can pay for itself immediately. If I just have turn 1 Llanowar Elf, then I go turn 2 land, cast this, tap Llanowar Elves for 2, cast something else. Pretty powerful. So pretty potent card. Looks really, really good. And, Earthbending, but not all in on that effect. It's also 2/2, sorry. We see more Earthbenders here in Toph the Blind Bandit. This is the uncommon 3 mana for X star 3, Earthbend 2, and then power equal to the number of counters on lands you control. So the more you do it, the stronger it gets. Makes sense. We also see Toph the first Metal Bender. That was not one of the elements that I was given in my brief about the set, but sure. Anaya 4 mana legend. Non-token artifacts are lands. They don't tap for mana, they just have the land subtype, and this allows you to Earthbend lands, basically. So sure, I guess. And then we see here another kind of like a signpost uncommon for limited. Dali Agents, 5 mana Golgari 3/4, Earthbend twice. You get 2 1/1 lands, and then it counts creatures in play, which is kind of cool, honestly. And then you got a card that would be really, really bad if the lands didn't come back if they died, but they do, so that's great. Less things to bend here is fire. So Firebending is pretty cool, pretty evocative. Firebending simply says that if this creature attacks, add red for the number of the Firebending number, and that mana lasts the entire combat. So you can use it for abilities in combat, you can use it for instants, but you need to have a plan for it or it goes away before your main phase. So Fire Sage is 2/2 for 2, Firebending 1. 3 mana, put a counter on this. Cool. Firebending Students are really cool rare. 2 mana for a 1/2 prowess, which is like, okay stat line. Has Firebending X, where X is this creature's power. So you could play a spell, attack, add 3, play a spell. Pretty cool, honestly. Pretty powerful card. And very interesting to see how this plays out, with instants and activated abilities and so on and so forth. We see Zuko Exile Prince. This is the uncommon 4 mana for a 4/3, Firebending 3, and then exile a card. Sure. The Mardu Legend is a 2/4 for 3. Firebending X, where X is its power, and you may cast a spell from exile whenever a permanent you control enters from exile. Sorry, whenever you cast a spell from exile, whenever you permanent enters from exile, put a counter on each creature you control. So not really tied to the Firebending part of it, but just kind of get a build around. Then we see some really big one here. I assume this is a very important character. I'm sure you can all tell me in the comments. Ozai, the Phoenix King, 6 mana for a 7/7. Trample, Firebending, Haste. I really hate that Firebending is in between Trample and Haste. I don't know why they put a specific keyword around 2 evergreen keywords, but whatever. If you would lose unspent mana, it becomes red instead, so you don't lose it, but you can't float anything but red. And then it is flying and indestructible as long as you're floating 6 or more mana. Kind of a crazy card. Trample and Haste is pretty powerful for a 7/7, so insane limited card. Indestructible, we'll see. And then we see kind of a Firebending esque card here in the last Agini Kai. So for an instant, it makes a fight, and then any excess damage dealt, you add red, and that red stays for the entire turn. So kind of a cool variant on a fight effect. Typically, fight effects aren't that good and constructed, but getting a bunch of mana is kind of cool. So like a ritual is kind of nice. So I don't know, we'll see. We see more versions of Aang. There are 3 total versions. This is the At the Crossroads version. It's a band, comes into play, you can put a creature in play, which is pretty sick. And when a creature dies, you get transformed into a 4/4, which is kind of nice. Then the super uber finalized version is Avatar Aang, which is a all but black flying firebending 4/4. And if you do every bend in one turn, transforms into a 6/6, your spells cost all less, and that's just pretty cool. Gain life, draw cards. This is the fun, all there build around, which is kind of sweet. And that's pretty cool. Pretty cool little side quest kind of card. We see another big character here in Sokka. Again, the uncommon version is kind of a signpost uncommon, just act and draw cards. We see more about lesson learn here and artifacts, discarding cards, and more ally stuff. More on that in a little bit. Like right now. Lessons return. Pretty interesting, though, in that lessons return in this set. there are no learn cards. So, of course, lessons were initially in Strixhaven, where the mechanic was based around learn cards, which said, do a thing and then learn. And then meant to go into your sideboard and pull out a lesson. So you had this kind of like, store repository of possible lessons you could learn that you could tutor up at any time. In this set, there are no learn cards. Lesson is just a subtype, which is kind of cool, actually, because they're using it sort of like as just an extra type they can count for different things in the graveyard or for spells or whatever. And we are going back to Strixhaven in a few sets, so this will matter for Constructed when that happens as well, which is kind of fun. So energy bending here, 2 mana, cantrip. That gives your land all basic types. This is just a kind of a cheap way to get a lesson in your graveyard for synergies and things like that. More on that. We got Azula Always Lies, 2 mana combat trick. Again, these are regular cards. All lessons previously were like really overcosted because they were so flexible. These are just regular cards, which is kind of cool because like lessons were very underpowered for Constructed, but these are all reasonably powerful. So just a limited trick here, but pretty cool. We see Zuko's Exile, 5 mana exile an artifact, creature, or enchantment. A colorless way to exile an enchantment is a pretty crazy one, actually. And then they make a clue token. So very inefficient removal, but it is for any color. And then what would be good if there was learn spells. Solstice Revelations, great thing to do with all your firebending mana. The mana for an instant, exile cards, and you can draw the card. Exile it to a non-land, you can draw it. But if you have mountains equal to or less than the number, or greater than the number of mana I can't talk today, man. What are we doing?
I'm tired of the clown show. Tired of it.
You may cast a spell without paying its mana cost if the spell's mana value is less than the number of mountains you control. I'll just read the card. Trying to paraphrase it, but wasting more time. So, also has flashback for 7. Instant speed red cards are of a greater value in the set because of firebending. So, this is kind of a cool card to cast in combat. Cycle of Renewal is just Harrow on a lesson, which is kind of cool for synergy purposes. And then we have cards that care about lessons. So, the dummy here is a 1/3 defender. Tap, mill a card. If it's a land, put it in your hand. If it's a lesson, you gain 2 life. Pretty cool card, honestly, if you're full of lands and lessons. We got Uncle Ira, which is a signpost uncommon for red-green. There's a lot of hybrid uncommons in this set because there's a kind of a push onto having some monocolored stuff going on, which is kind of cool. It firebends, makes your lesson spells cost less to cast, and then the big rare version that's Teamer allows you to flash back your lessons for 1 mana, which is pretty cool. So lessons a big theme in this set. Lion Turtle, same idea. It's a huge creature that can only attack or block if you have 3 or more lessons in your graveyard. So Mana Dork, Lifelink, etc., etc. And then we have allies. So aside from lessons returning, we also have allies returning, and allies have been in Zendikar and stuff like that. This is a simple ally, Lord, just 2/3 Lord, whatever, good for limited signpost uncommon. But we also see affinity for allies. This is a removal spell that it costs 1 mana with 2 allies in play, which is great. We got Boiling Rock Rider, which firebends and also taps allies to do cool stuff with your graveyard. So allies are here and as a returning mechanic, which is kind of cool to see. Honestly, allies were underpowered but fun. And more theme weaving here with this Simic signpost hybrid uncommon. When it enters, look at top 5 cards of your library. You get a lesson, a saga, or a shrine card. That's right, shrines return also. And then cast these spells, put a counter on creature you control. So definitely support for this in limited. And we see here shrines returning. Shrines were a very popular card type in Kamigawa. 4 mana for a shrine. When it enters, for each shrine you control, make a monk with prowess. Whenever another shrine you control enters, make a prowess token. So kind of cool to see it good on both sides of the ball, because shrines often were at, it was awkward to cast them in certain orders or whatever else. So kind of cool. Folks love shrines, so pretty cool to see these. They're a fun side quest in limited. And of course, Sagas return. Sagas are in every set these days. Leaves from the Vine, 2 mana to make it's a mill 3, make a food, put a counter on each of the 2 card creatures you control, and then draw a card if it's lesson in the graveyard. Pretty good. Pretty good little limited card, honestly. Milling cards is pretty fun. Legend of Kurok's a mythic here, and this is a 4 mana scry 2 draw, and then like the Final Fantasy sagas, it exiles into a creature that is Avatar Kurok that has Waterbend 20, take an extra turn. Both seeing 20 on a card and take an extra turn on a card, both big ones. Cast a spell, make a token. And unlike in Final Fantasy, these don't go back to being a saga at any point. So also colorless, which is kind of interesting. More sagas, KO2 lovers, the usual story stuff, make some tokens, do some things, yada, yada, yada. Sagas are always fun. And then we see a bonus sheet here, similar to Final Fantasy, with art from the actual show, which is like kind of cool, I guess, but at the same time also looks pretty low effort, which is like, I don't know, just reprint some commander cards and with some new art. Like, it's just like, yeah, but get it in the file, whatever. But Dark Depths, Eldamari's Call, Mystic Remora, I don't know, whatever, cool. Fun for limited, like Final Fantasy ones were as well. Don't know what commonality these are. They all say Mythic on them, so I don't know if there's going to be a lot of these in limited, but yeah, that's that. And that's the preview. So we got, of course, full set review for the set will be happening next week. That is next week. That is going to be on the date that I say to you in just a second here, which is going to be on Friday the 7th. So Friday the 7th, full set review. I'll go over all the cards, constructed and limited, of course. And then to follow will be 10 New Brews on Wednesday the 12th. And then we'll have the release on the 18th. That's when Bronze and Mythic will premiere. And I'm pumped for it. So look for all that. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, support the content. As always, I appreciate y'all. Thanks for hanging out. And let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll see you there.